Ladies and gentlemen, Primetime CP23 here, back with another build guide video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Explosive Blast Wizard. We're going to be looking at two different variants of this build, a Greater Rift pushing build and a Torment 13 speed farm variant. So for the T13 speed farm variant, the goal is to do as much as we can so that we can do everything in as short a time as possible and get back into Greater Rifts faster. So, to that end, we're going to be farming Death's Breaths, we're going to be farming gold with a Boon of the Hoarder and a gold wrap, and we're going to be farming a cute little bit of extra experience with the Casterian wrist guards. I don't know how much this actually affects like your level progression or anything. I haven't done any research on it or anything, but I mean, we're picking up a whole lot of gold, so we may as well gain a little bit of extra experience when we do it. When you're solo, you should probably drop this for Nemesis Bracers. I'm not going to do that because I don't actually know where my Nemesis Bracers are, just to be honest with you. I've got a couple Nems in my stash currently. Oh, there's the ones. Okay, yeah, so I'll wear that instead. I'll set that there to cure my OCD so that I'm not just missing an empty spot there. But anyway, when you're solo, you should probably wear Nemesis Bracers. When you are in a group, it's probably okay to just wear the wrist guards because in a group, there's a pretty good chance that at least one other person in the group is going to have NEMs. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for you to not wear NEMs. So what makes this build work? So we're going to be using the Wand of Woe, which is going to increase the damage of Explosive Blast by up to 400% and trigger 3 additional blasts every time you cast Explosive Blast. We are also going to be using the Orb of Infinite Depth so that each time you hit an enemy with Explosive Blast, your damage is increased by up to 10%. Damage reduction is increased by 20% for 6 seconds. That automatically makes this build very tanky. The fact that we're also using a Boon of the Hoarder and Gold Wrap to get ridiculous amounts of gold and increase your armor by that gold pickup for every 5 seconds means you are basically unkillable in T13. Excuse me. As you may be able to tell, I am sick currently. Then we got the 6-piece bonus of the tal-rasha's set, tal-rasha's elements set, so that every time you damage an enemy with one of the 4 different elements that wizards have, you're going to get an elemental stack that is going to give you plus 750% damage for 8 seconds. And every time you cast a different one of those attacks, it's going to refresh your stacks. And so the goal is to always be at 4 stacks. And you should be able to tell right there, that's an elemental stack. That's 2, 3, and Explosive Blast is 4. Because that's the 4th element. Shoulders are an open spot. I'm just wearing the Spalders of Zakara because it makes my items indestructible, and that means I never have to waste money repairing my items, which is helpful. It would be more helpful if I was actually, dying or anything, but what are you going to do? And then, of course, we've got the Sage's set to increase my Death's Breath drops by 1. So every time one Death's Breath would drop, I get a second one. Or in T13, every time 2 Death's Breaths drop, I get 3. When 3 drop, I get 4. So for this build, we're going to be using the number lock trick, which I do not have a video on yet. I am no master at it, but if you would like to see a video on it, I can always link somebody in the description. So I'm going to be number locking Diamond Skin with the Prism Rune to basically make you invulnerable to damage for a short amount of time after casting, and reduce arcane power of cost of all skills while it's active, which it's almost always active, as you can see. Explosive Blast is always going off because you're releasing 3 blasts instead of just 1, and then you're releasing an additional 4 blasts because of the Wand of Woe. So let's do a rift real quick. Depending on density, it only takes 2 to 3 minutes, tops. As you can see, you just melt everything. This is the first build I've ever used where... Oh, I should have stopped and paid attention. So I had 998 Death's Breaths when I started this rift. I just picked up 3, that's how I know. This may be a little slower rift. Where, oh where is the density for such an open map like this? That's going to be a dead end. So you can see when I'm killing things, my toughness is just skyrocketing because I'm picking up gold. Here we go. As soon as you start killing a couple elite packs, the build is basically just going to take off in damage. See, we're just going to stand here and completely shake off all of the damage from those explosions. So Ingeom kicked in. I'll go over to skills after this rift. This floor is awful. Like, I mean, generally this is a pretty good floor. This is a pretty good rift tile set generally. This particular one is pretty awful though. Hopefully this is the exit. If you haven't killed very many things, or if you're just getting into a rift, it's probably a good idea to not stand in explosions. But, you know, the last pack was Juggernaut, by the way. That's part of why it took so long to kill it. Does take a second to kill Juggernauts still. But we are so tanky, we literally just stand there and let them hit us until they die. Of course, the higher Paragon you are, the better off this build is going to be. I've still got relatively unoptimized gear. I've got decent rolls, but definitely not optimal. This is when the build really shines. This is when you can just run down the floor of a rift hallway and everything just dies around you. And that's that. Fortunately, you have to take off your number lock before you can teleport out, which is a little annoying, but what are you going to do? Let's go ahead and close the rift. And the skills do not change at all when switching to the Greater Rift variant. The only thing that changes in your gems is instead of a Boon of the Hoarder, you're going to have on a Wreath of Lightning, so that when you get hit, that occasionally when you get hit, you will get a burst of speed. In the cube, you're going to want an Engiom in either variant. You're going to want either a Gold Wrap or a Orgekian Arm Guards. Of course, Arm Guards are for the Greater Rift version. And then in this version, because we're able to wear the full 6-piece bonus, wear the full 6-piece set of tal-rashas, we no longer need a Ring of Royal Grandeur, so you can instead have a Halo of Karini in the cube. If you would like, instead of having on a Halo, you could always wear Mage Fist for increased fire damage and keep on the Ring of Royal Grandeur. Either way, you're going to have Focus and Restraint. As for skills, you're going to be using some kind of cold ability. I'm choosing Glacial Spike with a Magic Missile. A lightning ability. I find the Supermassive Rune on Black Hole to be nice because it groups enemies up and you just go and stand in them and wait for Explosive Blast to kill them. As we talked about, Diamond Skin, an Explosive Blast with a Chain Reaction Rune. Teleport. We have to have Calamity because it is the only teleport rune that damages enemies. So it's the only one that gives you a arcane stack on tal-rashas. And then Storm Armor with the Scramble rune to increase your movement speed when you get hit. Passives on either variant, you're going to want to use Audacity for increased damage to enemies that are close by, because you're going to be up in everybody's face. You're definitely going to want Evocation because you really need at least 50% cooldown. I think I'm up in the 60s right now. I'm at 60.55 damage or cooldown reduction, which is nice. And then you don't really need Unstable Anomaly for normal rifts. You could probably use something like Glass Cannon. could get away with elemental exposure. Personally, I like to be extra safe. I'd rather take an extra couple seconds in the rift and have zero risk of dying. And that's why I have both Unstable Anomaly, which is the cheat death passive for Wizard, and Blur, which is going to reduce your damage taken. Full Glass Cannon, you could probably go with Elemental Exposure and Glass Cannon. And that's going to give you quite a bit of a damage boost. Hold on. Sorry. It's not terribly professional, I realize this, but I do everything in one take. So, show you a Greater Rift real quick. This is a GR55, but you'll get the idea. Sorry about that. GR55 is in no way T13. But I mean, you've already seen you can do T13 with this build. This will give you a better idea of what this build is going to be able to do when you have proper gear and when you have better gear and gems and all that fun stuff. I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm just getting over a cold, so that's dead end. As I talked about in a couple videos of my preseason testing, this build I do use the mouse wheel, which is really weird for me. So I've never used the mouse wheel in a Diablo build. I always just click force move, or my left thumbstick, I guess, is how you would properly word it. As you can see, I mean, once you get going, the higher your CDR is, the more often your explosive blasts are going to be going off. And the more explosive blasts you have going off, the more things just melt around you and just explode all around you. So and as you can see, since we're number locking, we can kind of autopilot this. And this should be the Rift Guardian. Alrighty. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for today's video. Just kind of wanted to show off what I have been sorry, sometimes it takes a minute to get the number lock to turn off. Just kind of wanted to show off what I've been using for farming gems, farming, Torment 13 rifts. I forgot to even look earlier. But yeah, so we got about 30, well, more than 30, probably almost 40 death breaths in one rift earlier. So yeah, that's pretty good, I'd say, for one rift. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for today's video. As you can see, So far this season we've done a GR88. I'm going to be pushing a GR90 here in a few minutes. So stay tuned. And ladies and gentlemen, until next time, this is Primetime CP23, and I'm out.